but it says that Liverpool and Manchester United are in talks about a bombshell plot involving Europe's biggest football clubs to join a new FIFA-backed tournament that would reshape the sport's global landscapes. There you go. Playing it down a bit there, aren't they? But the nuts and bolts of this then, it's a $6 billion finance package, 12 teams in discussion at the moment. They're talking about 5 Premier League teams could join, and that it would be a European Premier League backed by FIFA rather than UEFA, replacing the Champions League. All this is out there in the ether now. They're talking about it. Is there any substance to this, do you think, or is it just all talk?
Well, I wouldn't say that there isn't any substance to it if it's out there. We've already had the discussions recently about cutting back on the Premier League and reducing it to 18 teams. And the suggestion at that time was the reason it would suit some of the top 6 clubs, the traditional top 6 clubs, let's say, is that it would give them more room to play more matches in midweek in European football. So I think UEFA have been under pressure from those big clubs, not just the English clubs, the Italian clubs and the Spanish clubs, I would say in particular, possibly Bayern Munich are part of it too, to allow them play more big matches against each other on a more regular basis, on a weekly basis perhaps, and use up more of the Champions League dates for that type of competition that they want to control rather than UEFA. So UEFA have been conceding to them. They've been conceding to them by reducing the number of international dates, first of all, so that the players are available to the clubs more often. But they've also been making huge concessions to them in that they've allowed them to have so many teams already in the group stages of the Champions League. Automatically, the Italian League, the German League, the Spanish League and the English League have 4 places already. There's been very few floating places. The French have had 3, I think. So those concessions are already being made. So there's more and more pressure on UEFA to concede to the clubs. The suggestion that FIFA are involved is interesting, but I would imagine FIFA would be interested in anything that where they can retain a bit of power but dish out more money to their associations, which is their power base in world football. The fact that they control the World Cup and international football is really their biggest power, their biggest income. But if they could see income coming from a club football competition, you can see why they might be interested in allowing it to happen, Tommy.
I wonder, does it sound like a kind of a negotiating tactic to put pressure on UEFA? And it's happened before around the time when the Champions League is up for discussion. But having said that, does it feel inevitable to you, Niall, that you have this sense of elitism, that we will be sitting here watching, at some stage in the future, watching only the big clubs and the likes of the Ferencváros and Dynamo Kiev and these teams will be sidelined? Yeah,
so this is no sort of little tip-off. This is a planned release at a time of great doubt in club football, particularly below the elite clubs level. And we know how much pain is out there with the clubs. And we saw an effort recently, as Brian mentioned, where a trade-off to clubs and try and give them money at the right time because they're
Project Big Picture.
Project Big Picture, which the English Football League turned down. But it just shows you the opportunistic nature of this. And I know my old employers in Sky, they haven't just come up with a line or two, and they said the detail is quite. It's unlimited. I read it for 20 minutes. It's one of the longest articles I've read. And to see what they know and to see it out there, this is a real play from a different type of owner than we had 10, 15, 20 years ago. And they are obviously throwing it in at a time of great uncertainty, at a moment of weakness with the rest of the game. And it'll be very interesting to see, is there a backlash? And if there is, if they are to again overcome that backlash and get this into play, wait you see, it'll be done with money. Solidarity payments, clubs being helped out, get them through.
Buy the votes of those who aim to stop it.
That's how football works, Tommy.
Because the traditionalists, and I'm sure we're all a bit like that, would say, you don't. This is elitism. You're messing with something that's fundamentally we love and we're used to. But the consumer, if you like, might say, I'd quite like to watch Man United, Barcelona, or Bayern, Liverpool, or Atletico and PSG as a regular product, for example. So will that carry the day, Brian? Do you think that's that?
I think it might well carry the day, and the temptation for these owners is the modern owners that Niall referred to, a different type of owner than who traditionally owned the clubs up till 15, 20 years ago. The temptation for them is to get their product out in the Asian market and the African market and other markets around the world, where there may be even more income in terms of watching this level of football. I mean, I don't think there's any club teams available anywhere else outside Europe that can match the standards of these things. We see all the best players coming to Europe from South America and from Africa and from Asia to play in the European League. So the product would be very valuable. The product would be watched and admired everywhere in the world. So you can understand why these owners would want to get that product out there and generate more finances for them. I mean, the generation of money, it'll be profitable for them, profitable for the owners. I think the players will receive even more money than they're receiving now, the top players, if they're good enough to play for these. The suggestion of maybe 18 teams, I don't know exactly how many teams would end up, but it's hard.
Would you like to see it happen?
I personally wouldn't like to see it happen. I wouldn't like to see that elitism created. I wouldn't like to see, for instance, the teams playing English football, the top clubs not playing in English football anymore, or their second teams playing. I don't know how it would work.